What's going on, guys? Matt here. So today we are looking at the Mossy Oak 10. I've got a few blades on the table, just some eye candy, something to look at while I kind of talk. I wanted to intro real quick before we get into the review of this Mossy Oak. And thank you guys for sticking with the channel. I am proud to report that I am out of graduate school. I didn't drop out. I finished. I graduated. So past couple years I've been in grad school, so it's been kind of hard to post videos regularly. But we are going to have regular videos once a week on weekends is likely when I'll have those coming out. So get some knife reviews, hopefully some adventure videos, some backpacking videos. But yeah, once a week will be the goal with posting content. But thank you guys for sticking with me through that couple year period where I wasn't able to post all that regularly. Here are a couple of knives that are coming up for review. I got this Kaiser Harpoon, that natural micarta handle. Really glad I went with that version. Cold Steel Airlight. Had this one for a while. As you can see, it's a little dirty, a little scuffed up, but I'm really looking forward to reviewing this one. I think it's a really interesting blade. We might do like a retrospective or an updated review on the Master Tonto by Cold Steel. We'll see. But we are looking at the Mossy Oak 10. Now, I know what you're thinking. Matt, Mossy Oak is a brand that is like exclusively sold at Walmart, and it's like for hunting clothes. They make like hunting clothes and maybe some of those cheap knives made of like 3CR13 MOV steel at Walmart. Why are you reviewing a Mossy Oak knife? Good question. So I was on Amazon, as one does, the other day, and I was looking at blades and this one came up. I liked the design. I said, oh, that's really cool. It kind of looks like a blade I always wanted but never had the opportunity to get because I believe it's discontinued. Comment below before I get to that portion if you think you know, or if you know what blade it kind of reminds me of. Anyway, I liked the design, and then I saw, okay, 14C28N. That's kind of an impressive steel for, yeah, 20 bucks. So I was intrigued. I picked it up, came in the mail, and I am reviewing it now. So that's kind of how we got here. So let's look at the specs on the Mossy Oak. We already did kind of some size comparisons with having those other blades on here. So we'll look at the specs, what I like, what I don't mind, and what I dislike, and then we'll close out the video. So the specs on this guy, 10 inches overall. It has a 5.25 inch blade, so a little bit smaller than that Master Tonto, by 3/4 of an inch. Also a little bit smaller than the Cold Steel SRK. This is one in 3V. Has a 4.75 inch handle. Blade thickness is going to be thinner than those Cold Steels that we saw. The stock on that, it's going to be 0.14, so that's 3.75 millimeters. Handle thickness is 0.58 inches. This comes with a cowhide, legitimate real leather sheath. It is finished, so it's not like bare cowhide. And it is going to cost you, like I said, $19.99 is how much Amazon has it. So you're looking at around 20 bucks. Comes in just a simple box like this. Most knives kind of do these days. Anyway, that's what we're looking at for specs. Let's talk about what I like. So the Mossy Oak 10, it is 14C28N, which is a Sandvik steel. It's a stainless steel. It's extremely stainless. It holds a good edge. It doesn't hold an incredible edge. I kind of think of it, and you guys let me know how you feel about it in the comments, but I kind of think of it as a better more rust resistant Auss-8. That's kind of how I see 14C28N. Holds about the same edge in my experience, and it's gonna not rust nearly as much as Auss-8 would. So kind of a good blend. I still think Auss-8 is a really good steel. It's a perfectly adequate steel for the price you usually get at it. So the next thing I really like about this blade is the look. I mentioned in the intro, what knife does it remind me of? Well, it reminds me of a SOG Tsunami. I don't know if you guys remember that blade. It kind of had a really straight Tonto, about the same size, had this kind of small guard right here, and it had a polymer handle, which this has a kind of, it feels just like Kydex, or it feels just like, not Kydex, Kraton. Let me know if you guys do know what this is. It has a hard rubber feel to it, which is kind of what Kraton feels like. Cold Steel uses Kraton in all their knives, most of their knives anyway. So I really like the look of it. It looks like that SOG Tsunami. I always wanted one of those, and I believe they're discontinued. So I was like, hey, that's really cool. Can kind of get a inexpensive version of that SOG Tsunami. Obviously, it doesn't have the word SOG on it and kind of doesn't have the venerability of that company, but it looks a lot like it and it functions really similarly in my opinion. So another thing I really like is the handle comfort. Now this is kind of a squared handle. It's not rounded like, again, here, Master Tonto. Very cylindrical handle, very, very rounded, kind of very easy to grab. This is a little bit more blocky, but I tell you what a blocky handle does, it locks you in a lot more. And I think the reason is your joints, your finger joints, your knuckles kind of wrap around that, right? And so they kind of index where those curves are. So blocky handle, not always the most comfortable, but a lot of times it really, really locks your grip in, which I really, really appreciate. So comfortable handle, really locks your hand in. And addition to that, this rubberized handle, I'm just going to call it Kraton, because if it's not Kraton, it's like an identical material, right? It's really comfortable. They have these ridges, kind of like a K-bar would, along the edge. Even if they weren't there, it probably would grip plenty, but they are there and it adds a little bit of texture to it. I just think this is an excellent handle. Very grippy, locks you right in. So excellent handle. Along with the handle, there's one thing I really appreciate about it. And maybe I was just kind of surprised at the price point that we're getting this for. But this is not a plastic guard. This is an aluminum guard, or it feels aluminum. If it's not, it's the lightest steel in the entire planet. I'm just going to call it aluminum because I'm 90% sure that's what it is. So having a metal guard right there, I just think is a nice touch. I appreciate the feel of it. It doesn't feel plastic. It doesn't, because it's not. It doesn't feel cheap. This is plastic on the end. Don't mind that so much because that is where the lanyard hole, sorry, I'll keep that in frame. That is where the lanyard would go. But I do appreciate having this aluminum guard. Just adds a little bit of upscale to a really budget knife. It's $20. It's a Mossy Oak knife, So I do appreciate that aluminum guard. I also really like the weight. I didn't mention it up top, but it is 6.37 ounces. That's really lightweight for a 5.1 inch blade. It's hardly anything, to be honest. SRK, I believe, weighs about 8 ounces. So, you're looking at quite a bit more for not that much more blade length. So I really like how lightweight it is. It does not feel heavy, even with the sheath. You have quite a lightweight package. So good option, maybe if you like this design and you end up deciding to take it, backpacking or something, you want something lightweight. Not that this is necessarily a backpacking knife. I mean, it's a straight bladed Tonto, right? It's a tactical knife. That's what they design it for. But I'm always a proponent of, if you like a blade, if you like a design, even if it's not the most practical for what you want to do with it, just use it for that. One blade I love taking out in the woods, the Recon Tonto. It's a great blade. It slices super well, it cuts well, it has a little bit of heft to it so I can hack a bit with it. It's a Tonto blade. It's not meant for outdoor use, but boy do I use it anyway, and boy does it work great. So I think it's great. Oh, what's going on here? Huh. You guys tell me. Man, that's a lot of wear on that Kraton. Have you guys seen that before? You guys tell me in comments. Boy, I'm dropping stuff left and right over here. Goodness gracious, that's wearing away a lot. Okay, I'll have to look at that, won't I? All right, keep moving on. Okay, so, and last thing I like is, I just like the placement of that jimping. I think it's adequately sharp. I think it's placed right, and I think it really helps lock in on that handle. Okay, let's move on to what I don't mind. So, the sheath. I like the materials of the sheath. It's cowhide leather. I like a leather sheath. Couple things I don't like about it. I don't like that finishing on it. It makes it feel fake, even though it's not. I can tell it's real leather. But it makes it feel kind of fake when you use it, just because that's that coating. Now that will make it more moisture resistant, so that's not going to absorb nearly as much water as a bare leather sheath would. Still, my main issue with it is these designs are just not great, to be honest. It's really, really, really easy to cut that strap. You have to be very conscious to not do it. And yeah, is it going to be okay? Probably for, first few years of use. At some point, you might really cut that thing, and there's not really much. The retention actually isn't bad without it, but at some point, this leather's going to wear out, and it's just not gonna hold it anymore. So it is what it is. It's not a terrible sheath. I like the materials. I just wish, can we do something different than that retention? Is there something else we can do maybe? Anyway, let's move on to what I don't like. So While I do like the design of this knife, I think it's cool. I think it's designed like the SOG Tsunami. I like a Tanto with a curve more than I do just a straight Tanto. Why? Because how do I use my knives? Well, I'm not a Marshall blade practitioner. Even my Tanto blades, I use them in the outdoors. I'm a backpacker, I'm a camper, I'm an outdoors guy, and if I can't use a blade to, feather stick, to start a fire, to food prep, all that stuff, I'm not going to use it. Now, can you use that for this? Absolutely. But it's not going to work as well as something like the Master Tanto. This isn't even an outdoors blade. This is a fighting knife through and through. But there's more sweep to it. It's just gonna have a little bit more belly to do some carving with. It works actually pretty decently as a camp knife, that Master Tanto. Perfectly well, in my opinion. This just won't have that. It doesn't have that sweep. This is really, it seems really designed more of as a fighting knife, kind of dedicatedly. But you can do that kind of stuff with it, and it's probably going to perform fine. As good as others? No, it's not going to. That's just not this design. But it's still going to perform just fine. So really prefer a curved Tanto blade, so we have a little bit more belly on it. Last thing I don't like is I think that tip is far too thin for a Tanto blade. For really any blade, to be honest. That is a really thin tip. Let's compare it to a blade that has an incredibly thin tip, the Kaiser Harpoon. Yeah, the very tip is not that far off. Let's compare it to the Airlight by Cold Steel. Airlight's got a significantly more stout tip. And of course, we'll compare it to that. Oh boy, there we go. Okay, so yes, this blade isn't as thick, but you can see how much meat is up towards the tip of this. That's one thing I like about Tantos, is usually they have stout tips. You don't have to worry about that if you're doing some utility tasks with them. This has a very thin tip for a Tanto, so I don't appreciate that. I like a little bit more meat up there, even if it's not a Tanto, frankly. Is it something I can live with? Yes, it's something I can totally live with, especially for a lighter duty knife. If this is a belt knife and I'm doing some feather sticking, maybe I'm using it for camp tasks like food prep and cutting paracord, stuff like that, it's going to be totally fine. So it's not the end of the world, but it is something that I don't really appreciate. So let's wrap it up real quick. And something I want to start doing, and we'll probably start doing this towards the beginning of videos because I think you guys might appreciate it, is what would you use this for? So clearly this is designed as a more tactical blade. It's black, has a black sheath, has a Tanto style tip. It's a straight blade. It's not really meant for outdoors use. But like with any knives, and like I've discussed earlier, I think this would be a perfectly adequate camp knife if you want to use it for that. Perfectly fine backpacking blade. A lot of times what you're doing when you're at camp, or especially when you're backpacking and you probably only have one blade, you're really using it for utility. We usually bring fire starters. We don't really need kindling. I might baton a little bit with my blade, but usually it's for utility tasks around camp. It's for whittling just around the fire. So cutting paracord, cutting other things like that around camp, and you just really need a sharp object that's not going to break. And this knife definitely fits the bill for that. Would it be a good tactical blade? I think so. Again, I'm not a knife fighter. It's low profile, black. It's not super heavy. Actually, it's a very light. Now, if you wanted to attach to this to like a molly gear or some sort of webbing, you might have a little bit of trouble. You probably wouldn't want to mount it like this. You could though, upside down, if you found out a way to lash it, kind of how to do that. But you definitely can mount it right side up. And it's small, out of play, kind of inconspicuous. I think it'd be a great tactical blade. Bring overseas with you if this is kind of all the money you have to spend. There are a lot other blades that are going to perform better steel, yada yada, all that stuff, but they're probably not going to be 20 bucks. So do I recommend it? Absolutely. Mossy Oak 10, kind of a sleeper hit in my opinion. You guys will have to let me know what you think of it in the comments. It's just a unique thing for a brand like Mossy Oak to do. And we've seen this a lot, and you knife guys know this. We've seen like Walmart brands, which for those of you who don't live in the United States, Walmart's like it's a big box retail store. Swiss Tech has been coming out with blades in AUS 10 and VG10 with ball bearings and just excellent materials. So we have these brands that used to be kind of really not even budget brands. I would just call them garbage brands, putting out garbage knives. I think they're realizing, hey, we're probably going to spend about the same because of how mass-produced steels like VG10 and 14C28N and D2 are. So let's start getting some decent steels, putting the blades together decently, and we'll sell them for just a little bit more. And people are catching on to them, and they are gaining in popularity, and for good reason. So whoever runs Mossy Oak, or the parent company of the parent company who runs Mossy Oak, this was a wise decision. You're going to see some sales from some people, from some knife guys even, who are like, yeah, here's my beater knife. You know, it performs well. It's got a good steel, good materials, and it was only 20 bucks. So I can't recommend this one enough. Excellent job on this, whoever's running the Mossy Oak knife branch of their company. Great job. Guys, remember to like and subscribe. Got a lot of cool videos coming up. Thanks for sticking with me. Have a good one. Peace.